In this video, you're going to see how one corrupt HOA tried to push around the wrong family, and how I fought back using legal evidence, local news, and a hidden whistleblower on the inside. You'll learn how HOAs can illegally foreclose on homes, the hidden scam they use to funnel money into fake accounts, how I uncovered secret documents and got the authorities involved, and how we got my grandma's house back while watching the board president get indicted. So stay with us till the very end, because trust me, the ending is so satisfying, you won't want to miss it. And hey, thank you so much for your comments. I read every single one and truly appreciate your support. If you want to help this channel grow, all it takes is a quick like and subscribe. It's free, takes less than a second, and helps us bring more real stories like this to you. Now, let's get back to the important and necessary information. I was halfway through a protein bar when the phone call came. "Jack, it's Grandma." They kicked me out. My heart stopped. Not kicked out of store, not asked to leave a restaurant. She meant home. Her home. The one she lived in for 35 years. The one with the sun porch and the hydrangeas that somehow bloomed year-round. "Wait, what? Who kicked you out?" "The HOA," she said, her voice trembling. "Said I owed fees. Thousands. I never miss a payment, Jack. Not once." By the time I pulled into Rosewood Acres, her house looked like a crime scene. Yellow tape. A posted notice stapled to the door. Grass already browning in patches. Like the earth itself knew she didn't live there anymore. I parked across the street and ran up the path, ignoring the red warning signs posted on the lawn. A woman in a beige suit, clipboard in hand, was standing near the front door. HOA. I could tell from the smug look alone. "You can't be here," she said before I even opened my mouth. "And you can't illegally evict a 78-year-old woman." I shot back. "Where is she?" The woman blinked, then pulled her lips into a tight smile. "Ms. Edwards was given appropriate notice. My grandmother's name is Margaret Edwards, and she didn't miss a single payment in 35 years. So tell me again, where is she?" She hesitated. That told me everything I needed to know. I walked past her and peered through the window. The living room was empty, stripped. The family photos gone. The floral cushions gone. The ceramic cat statue I hated as a kid gone. Like someone had tried to erase her. "She's staying with a friend," the woman finally said. "Now please, leave the premises before I call the police." I didn't respond. I took out my phone and snapped photos of every posted notice, every crack in the story. Then I turned and walked. Not away, toward war. Later that night, I found Grandma at her friend Dolores' house, 2 blocks over. She smiled when she saw me, but it was thin, forced. She looked smaller somehow, like the house had been holding her up all those years. "They said I owed them $7,240, she said over a cup of chamomile tea. "But I've got receipts, Jack. I keep everything." And she did. 2 shoeboxes full. Late into the night, we went through every one. Payment after payment, all dated, all signed, all deposited. Nothing matched what the HOA was claiming. That's when I noticed something odd. A payment she made in January for $200, logged in her bank statement. Didn't show up in the HOA's ledger. In fact, 3 more like that were missing too. I knew it then. This wasn't a mistake. This was fraud. I stared at the spreadsheet for the 3rd time. Dates, amounts, deposit confirmations. Grandma was right. Every payment had been made. And yet, entire months were missing from the HOA's ledger. "This doesn't make sense," I muttered, tapping the keyboard with growing agitation. Dolores walked in carrying a plate of shortbread cookies. "I keep telling her to fight it," she said, offering me one. "But she says she doesn't have the strength." Grandma gave a tired smile. "I'm not as quick as I used to be. They know that. That's why they did it." My jaw clenched. "Did they show you any proof?" I asked. "Only a printout," she said. "No signatures. Just a balance due and a threat of lien." It was all too convenient. The missing entries, the sudden fee hike, the timing, right after her neighbor passed away and his home sold for triple its value. They weren't just enforcing rules. They were cherry-picking victims for profit. "Let me handle it," I said. She looked at me, concerned. "You have work. Your life." I shook my head. "No. What I have is a degree in forensic accounting and 3 years of uncovering fraud for a corporate audit firm. This is personal." Her eyes watered slightly, and she nodded. The next morning, I showed up at the Rosewood HOA office in a dark blue jacket and a crisp folder in my hand. The receptionist looked up. "I'd like to review the full financial ledger for the past 5 years," I said clearly. She raised a brow. "Are you a homeowner?" "No," I said, "but Margaret Edwards is, or was, until your board committed mail fraud and unlawful foreclosure." That got her attention. She scurried into the back, and after a few minutes, a man in his 50s with slick-back, gray hair emerged. His name tag read Dean Wallace, HOA treasurer. "What seems to be the issue?" I handed him my folder. Inside were copies of the missing payments, bank transactions, and a notarized letter from Grandma authorizing me to represent her. "Your books are cooked, Dean," I said flatly, "and I'm going to prove it." He glanced at the papers, and his confident smirk faltered just slightly. "There's been some confusion, perhaps," he said. "I'm sure we can resolve this without—" "Without what?" I cut him off. "Without a full audit? Without the board being investigated for elder abuse? Without the IRS looking into your nonprofit status?" He stepped back, rattled. I think this conversation is over." "You're right," I said. "The next one will be with a judge." Later that night, I sat at my old desk in Grandma's guest room with my laptop open, cross-referencing dates and accounts. The deeper I dug, the more damning it became. Multiple homeowners had missed payments that never actually missed, fake fees for lawn violations, unexplained assessment increases, and in at least 5 cases, foreclosures followed by rapid resales to a holding company, all tied to someone named M. Kane. Marcia Kane, the HOA president. This was a scheme, a real estate scam disguised as a neighborhood watch, and they used my grandmother to test how far they could go. The morning air was sharp, filled with the scent of distant lawn fertilizer and a neighborhood trying too hard to look perfect. I walked down Sycamore Lane, every manicured bush and squeaky clean mailbox mocking what had just happened to Grandma. At the edge of the cul-de-sac stood her house. No lights on. The bird bath she'd carefully painted each spring had been removed. Her porch swing, the one I used to fall asleep on as a kid, was ripped out, replaced by a cheap security sign, protected by clear sight monitoring. Irony at its finest. A white SUV pulled into the driveway across the street. Mr. Brenner, an old war vet and family friend, stepped out, leaning heavily on a cane. He paused when he saw me. "Jack," he said cautiously, "I heard what happened. Is your grandma okay?" "She's staying with Dolores," I said, "but they're trying to bury her in fake fees. You ever get anything weird from the HOA?" He nodded slowly. "They fined me last year for a non-compliant garden gnome. Said it violated aesthetic standards." He chuckled, but it was bitter. "Been on this street 40 years. First time anyone cared what my gnome looked like. You ever fall behind on fees?" "Never. Not once." I hesitated. "And yet, you got a warning last month. I saw your name on the lien notice list." His expression changed. That can't be right." I pulled out my phone and showed him a PDF of the document I dug up the night before. His name, a $312 processing fee, 2 months past due. According to the HOA, he was in pre-lien status. His hands trembled as he read it. "They never told me." "That's the point," I said grimly. "They don't tell anyone until they think you're too tired, too confused, or too old to fight back." Later that day, HOA records office again. I walked in with new confidence. My hands carried a file thicker than before. This time, I had spreadsheets, scanned letters from 3 neighbors, and emails suggesting someone in the HOA office had altered dates. A younger woman at the desk, Elena, looked nervous when she saw me. "You're Jack, right? Margaret's grandson." "Yep, and you're the one who files the paperwork." She glanced around. "Look, I'm not supposed to say anything, but they've been shredding stuff. My heart skipped. Elena, I said carefully, do you know who's doing it? Mostly Kane, she whispered. And Dean sometimes. They do it late. They say it's old records, but some of those boxes were marked from this year. I pulled out a small flash drive and slid it toward her. If you ever feel like doing the right thing, you know what to do. She didn't take it, but she didn't push it back, either. That evening, Grandma's old house. I stood across the street, watching a man in a navy windbreaker walk up the front porch. A real estate agent. He opened the door with a code and stepped inside. They were staging it. They were already preparing to list the house. They hadn't even finalized the paperwork. I dialed the county clerk's office on speaker. Yes, I'd like to verify the transfer status of 113 Sycamore Lane, I said. Previous owner, Margaret Edwards. There was a pause. No transfer has been processed, the clerk replied. That property still legally belongs to Ms. Edwards. No lien has been filed with the county. No auction, no sale. I stared at the house. They were bluffing. They'd scared her out before even initiating the process. They faked the urgency, the legality, and if I hadn't come home, they would have stolen it and sold it before anyone noticed. But now they were going to pay. Thursday nights were usually quiet in Rosewood Pines. But tonight, the community hall was packed to the walls. Folding chairs filled with elderly couples, tired parents with toddlers in tow, and a few young families who probably hadn't realized yet how deep the HOA rabbit hole went. They were here for the monthly HOA meeting, the kind of event where petty landscaping arguments were usually the main attraction. But tonight, things were different. Tonight, I was on the agenda, though the board didn't know it yet. The HOA president, Marcia Kane, stood behind a lectern flanked by the rest of the board, Dean Wallace, the treasurer, Susan Eckhart, secretary, and a pair of others who looked more interested in checking their watches than dealing with anything meaningful. Marcia cleared her throat. We'll begin with new business. First item, revisions to the Community Lawn Maintenance Ordinance. I stood up from the back. Point of order, I called. Half the room turned. I'm not a resident anymore, I said loudly, stepping into the aisle. But my grandmother was, until this board illegally forced her from her home. Gasps. Excuse me, Marcia said sharply, already fumbling for control. I have bank statements, HOA notices, county records, and testimonies from neighbors showing that not only was there no legal foreclosure, but the fees being charged were entirely fabricated. A murmur rolled through the crowd. Marcia's voice cracked. This isn't the proper forum for personal accusations. Then let's talk about everyone. Like Mr. Brenner, Mrs. Lee, the Alvarezes, all fined or threatened with liens in the past 12 months, yet none of their payments matched the HOA's own ledgers. Dean stood up now, red-faced. That's confidential internal data. It's not confidential when you're using it to steal homes and flip them for a profit. And it's especially not confidential when the HOA president's personal LLC is the one buying those homes after residents get pushed out. Complete silence. Then shouting. A man stood and yelled, I got hit with a $1,200 fence violation and never saw proof. Another woman raised her hand, trembling. They said I owed for repainting my trim. I paid twice. The board tried to gavel it down. Out of order, but it was too late. The room had turned. One by one, voices rose. Demands. Questions. Rage. I walked right up to the front, set a printed spreadsheet on the table, and leaned in toward Marcia. I have everything backed up. Financial reports. Scanned documents. Communications from your treasurer's email account. And a notarized letter ready for the DA's office in the morning. Her hands trembled. You'll regret this. No, I said calmly. You will. Outside the hall, after the chaos, the meeting had devolved into shouting and calls for an emergency vote. Neighbors gathered around me outside, sharing stories, snapping photos of the documents I'd passed out, and asking what they could do. We need signatures, I said. Enough to call a special board election. Enough to freeze operations and demand a third-party audit. By midnight, I had over 60 homeowners' signatures. By the weekend, we'd doubled it. Marcia Kane had been running this HOA like a kingdom. Now, the villagers were at the gates. The next day, I was back in Dolores' living room with my laptop open, cross-checking documents and emails. I'd barely slept. The public exposure at the HOA meeting had sent shockwaves through the neighborhood, but it wasn't enough. People were angry, sure, but anger alone doesn't topple a scam as entrenched as this. I needed proof, undeniable, irrefutable proof of fraud, a paper trail, a confession, something that would make even the most HOA-friendly attorneys slam the brakes. That's when I got the message. A single email, no subject line, no signature, just a burner Gmail. I've seen what you're doing. You're right. I have records they never deleted. Meet me tomorrow behind the community clubhouse. 9 a.m. sharp. Come alone. For a moment, I thought it was a trap, but something told me it wasn't. It was Elena, the HOA office clerk, the one who didn't take the flash drive, but didn't push it back either. The next morning, community clubhouse. The air was heavy with fog and tension. I parked far off and approached the rear of the clubhouse, the kind of place usually reserved for wine mixers and Halloween parties. Elena was there, hoodie up, nervously clutching a backpack. You came, I said. She didn't smile, just handed me the bag. Inside, a small external hard drive, a stack of printed emails, and a bound copy of a budget report with yellow sticky note. Look at line 47 on each month. They've been hiding money under landscape contractor payments. But the contractor doesn't exist. My eyes widened. You have access to the board's financial back-end? I asked. She nodded. I generate the monthly summaries. Marcia signs off. She told me not to ask questions, said she was cleaning up errors. But last month they started cleaning up by deleting full lines, bank transfers in and out that didn't match the paper reports. And you backed it all up? I asked. Every night since March. My heart beat faster. Why help me? She hesitated. Because what they're doing, it's wrong. And they think just because I'm quiet and need the job, I'll play dumb. But I've lived here my whole life. My mom was almost fined $5,000 for a shed she already had city permits for. Her voice cracked. They don't just break rules, they invent them. I reached into my pocket and handed her a business card. Keep this, I said. If they catch on, call me or my lawyer. You're not alone anymore. She exhaled slowly. They're going to come for me. They already are. But next time we'll be ready. Back at my makeshift office in Dolores' guest room, I plugged in Elena's hard drive. Within minutes, my screen lit up with spreadsheet after spreadsheet. Every month of financials, raw from the internal software, dates, amounts, vendor IDs, memos. And just like she said, line 47. Every single month, LCP, landscape contractor payment. The amounts varied. $3,200 one month, $6,750 another. But the pattern held. And when I ran the supposed vendor through the state business registry, no such business existed. It was a ghost vendor, a shell. And worse, payments from the HOA account were being routed through an intermediary firm, Kane Property Solutions, LLC. Kane, Marcia Kane. She had been laundering HOA dues, grandma's dues, into her own fake company for 2 years. I sat back, stunned. This wasn't just petty corruption. It was felony-level embezzlement. By sunrise the next day, I had already made 3 encrypted backups of Elena's files. One on a secure cloud drive, one on a USB in my sock drawer, and another mailed anonymously to my lawyer back in city just in case. Because I knew one thing for sure. When people like Marcia Kane feel cornered, they get dangerous. I called a few of the most vocal neighbors who had stood up during the HOA meeting. Mr. Brenner, the Alvarezes, even Mrs. Henderson, the woman with the pink shutters who'd once led a protest over tulip height violations. We need a petition, I said, to freeze all HOA activity until a third-party audit is completed. And we need it now. They were ready, furious, united. By the end of the day, we had 123 verified homeowner signatures, over 70% of the community, enough to trigger an emergency vote under the HOA's own bylaws. I sent a petition to the HOA board via registered mail, email, and printed copies taped to the clubhouse doors. I sent a tip to Channel 6 Investigates, the local news team known for their "You Paid for a Consumer" segments. The next morning, I watched a report on my phone with Grandma and Dolores in the kitchen. Residents of Rosewood Pines accused their HOA board of financial mismanagement and potential fraud, the anchorwoman said. Records obtained by an anonymous whistleblower suggest at least $72,000 may have been embezzled through ghost vendors. The board president, Marcia Kane, declined to comment. Grandma nearly dropped her coffee mug. "They showed the house," she gasped. "That's my porch." "I told you," I said with a grin. "They picked the wrong family." Late that night, I received a block call. I almost let it go to voicemail, but curiosity won. It was Susan Eckhart, the HOA secretary. "I want to talk," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't know what they were doing. I just signed what Dean told me to sign. "Then help me prove it," I replied. A pause. "I'll get you board meeting minutes," she whispered. "Private ones, not in the official log. But if Marcia finds out—" "She won't. I promised. But this is your chance to get out clean." By now, Kane knew things were falling apart. But instead of backing down, she did what corner people do best. She went nuclear. She sent a cease and desist letter claiming I was harassing board members, claimed I was forging documents and defaming the HOA. She even hinted that Grandma's account had been compromised and needed investigation. I sent it straight to my lawyer, who laughed. "This woman is playing Monopoly while you're playing chess," he said. "Let's see how she likes a subpoena." 2 nights later, at a second emergency meeting, Kane tried to shut it all down. "This is a smear campaign," she screamed at the crowded clubhouse. "I've served this community for over a decade." But this time, no one was buying it, especially not when I walked in, holding a folder marked Kane Property Solutions, account routing statements. I handed them out like party favors. The board members read in silence. Susan didn't defend her. Dean turned red, then pale. And the others? They looked like they just realized their boat was sinking and fast. And the best part? Channel 6 was filming the entire thing. 3 days after the explosive emergency meeting, I got the call I'd been waiting for. "Mr. Hughes, this is Assistant District Attorney Reyes with the County Fraud and Public Integrity Division. We'd like to schedule a formal interview regarding the documents you submitted." I paused. "You mean you're taking the case?" She didn't hesitate. "We've already pulled Kane Property Solutions tax records. And you were right. There's enough here for a grand jury to be convened." It was surreal walking into the county office building the following Monday, a leather satchel full of documents, digital drives, and signed affidavits from half the neighborhood. Elena had even printed a full accounting index. Every instance of ghost payments, backdated notices, and phony fines that funded Kane's LLC slush fund. DA Reyes and 2 investigators spent nearly 3 hours with me, going line by line. At one point, one of them just said, "Jesus, she was laundering HOA dues into her own flipping company." I nodded. "And foreclosing on elderly residents to free up homes for sweetheart sales." By the time I left, Reyes handed me a sealed envelope. "What's this?" I asked. She smiled grimly. "A subpoena for HOA board records. And a summons for Ms. Kane. We're going public by Friday." Word spreads fast in the gated community, especially when the local news gets involved. By Wednesday morning, the headlines hit: "Small Blue Diamond, HOA under grand jury investigation for fraud and elder abuse allegations." Small Blue Diamond board president accused of pocketing $70,000 plus through fake landscaping company. Small Blue Diamond community whistleblower sparks county investigation. I wasn't just the grandson of a victim anymore. I was the guy who blew it all open. That night, my phone buzzed with a block call. Again, this time I answered. "Jack." Came the voice, low, brittle, and cold. "You think you've won." "Marcia," I said, "how's your attorney holding up?" "You've ruined everything," she hissed. "My company, my reputation, my retirement plan, all over your grandma. There was venom in her voice, but there was fear, too. You didn't just steal from her. I replied, you stole from dozens of families, people scraping by, veterans, widows, teachers. You deserve worse. You're going to regret this. I laughed softly. You've said that before. But guess what, Marcia? You're the one under indictment now, not me. She hung up, and that's the last time I ever heard her voice. Friday morning, the entire board was served. Kane tried to resign, but it was too late. Her resignation didn't protect her from criminal prosecution. In fact, it only made her look guiltier. The DA's office confirmed. She was facing 4 felony charges, including wire fraud, elder abuse, misappropriation of community funds, and obstruction. Dean Wallace tried to cut a deal, offering testimony in exchange for immunity. Susan, she voluntarily stepped down and agreed to testify on the community's behalf. The rest of the board dissolved faster than sugar and tea. A month later, a county judge ruled that Kane's acquisition of Grandma's home was legally void. The foreclosure was improper, the accounting was falsified, and the home was to be returned free of lien or penalty. The HOA's assets were frozen. A temporary trustee was appointed, and the board disbanded indefinitely. I stood beside Grandma the day she walked back into her house, keys in hand, tears streaming down her face. They stole my dignity, she whispered, but you gave me back my peace. I gave you back your home, I said, but you always had your dignity. Marcia Kane was sentenced to 7 years in prison. Dean Wallace paid a massive fine and was banned from serving on any community board ever again. Elena got a full scholarship from the state's whistleblower fund and enrolled in accounting school. And me? I didn't just save Grandma's house. I helped the neighborhood save itself. And to this day, whenever people complain about their HOA, I just smile. You think your HOA is bad? I tell them, you should have met Kane.